Welcome to a 10-1-10-1 review. My name is Nessa, and today we're going to be talking about Wildflowers and how I felt after playing the game for 10 minutes, 1 hour, 10 hours, 1 year in game. As a person who does not have a lot of time to play games, I think that first impressions are really important, and the first 10 minutes and an hour of the game usually should give you a basic rundown of what the game has to offer. That being said, I also know that farming, life sims, and other cozy games in the genre can have slow starts, lengthy tutorials, or take some time to really shine, which is why I think reviewing the game at 10 hours and 1 year in game is also important, because how I feel at the 1 hour mark might be completely different than how I feel 10 hours, and that could ultimately change again after going through 1 year in game. I won't be rating Wildflowers on a scale, but we'll definitely talk about things that I liked and wished it did differently. So without further ado, let's get into the review. Wildflowers is a cozy slice-of-life farming sim game developed by Studio Drydock. It is available for PC, the Nintendo Switch, and Apple Arcade. Since I played this game on PC, my experiences are limited to that version. Wildflowers was released for PC on September 20th, 2022, and currently retails on Steam for $24.99. In this game, you are able to tend to crops, care for animals, fish, mine, craft, cook recipes, gather ingredients, as well as craft potions and incantations to make your life easier. You are Tara, a young woman who moves to the island of Fairhaven. After a series of unfortunate events in your life, you're here to help your grandma with her farm and balance finding out you're a witch. As you settle into your life on the island, you start to get into all sorts of magical mishaps with the coven and the island villagers that suspect something is going on, but they're unsure of what malcontent lurks in the forest near their peaceful town. As of this review, I believe that I have experienced most of the story, although there is still ongoing loose ends to tie up. During my first 10 minutes, I was treated to a pan over of the island town of Fairhaven and my character Tara stepping off of a ferry. Surprisingly, the game did not start with a customization option, so everyone starts as Tara wearing the same outfit. I was also surprised that there was no tutorial for moving around. I had to figure out what the interact button was on my own. I later learned that this was because the game released on Apple Arcade first in February of 2022, so most of the controls are fine-tuned for tap-touch gameplay. It would make sense for someone playing on an iPad to start tapping the screen to move a character without needing a tutorial, so I can understand why there isn't one. The controls are really simplistic in the game, and I like the fact that I can play without having to move the mouse at all. You just have to use WASD and the spacebar for most things. However, I think that having a simple pop-up could really help new players who may not have played before to easily see which controls do what. My surprise continued after being treated to voice-acted cutscenes and dialogue with everyone that I talked to so far on the island. Tara also spoke, and she clearly has her own defined personality. I found this approach really interesting and was excited to see where the game would take Tara's character development. The game also brought in a bit of magic already, with Grandma Hazel using a spell to do her chores. So far, I have a lot of questions on how she's able to do magic, but that's definitely not answered in the first 10 minutes. What I was able to accomplish was planting my first potato seeds and watering them. I gathered mushroom for Grandma's stew and gained some beginner quests to wait for the potatoes to finish. Grandma sent me off to town to meet with the mayor, who wanted me to greet every single townsfolk on the island. After my introduction to the game, I was still eager to continue playing. The graphics are stylistic and cartoony, and the town looks pretty cool. I wanted to know more about how magic plays into the game, so starting my first hour happened very seamlessly. After an hour in game, I was able to finish meeting all of the townsfolk as per the mayor's request, and I learned why I came to Fairhaven in the first place. I unlocked the ability to cook and chop down tree logs, and I was still slowly watering my potatoes daily. I was introduced to the shops in Fairhaven and the different things that each shop sold. Lena has a grocery store where you can buy more seeds and ingredients for cooking. Kai sells exotic imports such as tree seedlings. Angus has a bakery, and Francis owns a jewelry shop, to name a few. So far, the gameplay gameplay mechanics are really simplistic, and there's a lot of focus on the story. I've only completed a few quests, but it already seems as though the story is progressing rapidly, as Tara learns that her grandma's part of a witch coven, and she has a basement where she keeps a cauldron that she gives to Tara because she thinks that Tara would make an excellent addition to the coven. The first hour is spent setting up Tara's introduction to the coven and getting her wand. I think because of the voice acting, I was able to connect faster with the characters than other games that do not have voice acting. Each character that I've talked to are charming, and they haven't had any repetitive dialogue so far. Some of the dialogue made me chuckle or smile a couple times, so I definitely felt the connection, and I couldn't wait to learn more about the people of Fairhaven. Right away, you can start building relationships with the villagers, as simply talking to them will raise a bit of their heart level. Later on, the player will be able to give villagers different gifts and even see cutscenes to become closer friends and, for some of them, romantic interests. The hour ends with Grandma asking Tara to recite the incantation to open the Thorn Bramble Gate, so of course I was ready to keep playing and seeing where Tara's path takes her and how the game will introduce magic. Shortly during my second hour of play, I was initiated into the Witch's Coven and learned about the Wellspring mechanic, where I can offer anything to the Wellspring Cauldron at the Coven and replenish some of my magical energy, which is used for crafting incantations. Incantations are spells that I can craft at my basement that can enhance my experience, such as giving me the ability to move faster for a few days, or having forgeable items be drawn to me for a short amount of time. During the second hour, I also unlocked fishing. The minigame is standard, where you wait for a fish to nibble before you pull it up. In this game, you can choose to ignore a smaller fish's nibble and wait for a big fish to be on the hook before you decide to reel it in. There are a variety of different baits as well as different locations to find different fish. When I sold products to the store, that leveled up the store and unlocked more items that the storekeepers were willing to sell me, which is a really cool system. The more you sell to a shop, the more variety of items they will sell you. Later on in the game, this definitely becomes a crucial part of making things easier, since I could get harder to find ingredients at the store instead of trying to find it on the ground. About 3 hours in, I unlocked the mines and was able to start mining for iron ore. The mines work similarly to other farming sim games where you mine rocks and have a random chance to unlock the next level. In Wildflowers, this comes in the form of a key that you find after smashing rocks. There are no enemies in the mine, so you don't have to worry about combat. Mining is pretty quick in this game, as you cannot mine for very long in the beginning before you run out of stamina. After finding 4 ores on the first day of unlocking the mine, I was already spent and needed to recover. One of the things that became clear right away is that Wildflowers does not count the days, only the days of the week. So it's hard to track how much time I've spent in one season compared to another one, since the seasons do not work as other farming sims do. Changing seasons in this game is an active effort and moves the story forward, so it's a pretty unique concept in that regard. I spent most of my 10 hours in spring and made it to summer before the 10 hours elapsed, but I wasn't at that point where I had any animals yet on my farm or was able to harvest any of the summer crops. I noticed that I mined quite a lot during the 10 hours, to the point where I would consider it a grind. Since I needed money to expand my farm, I often found myself in the mines to get ores so I can turn them into ingots and sell them back to the blacksmith and jewelry shop. This gave me the most money that I could see during this time, so I actually spent way more time in the mines than I did with the garden plot. I didn't feel like farming was as lucrative. I would say that mining during the 10 hours was quite a bit of a slog for me. However, what kept me going was the story. As Tara continued to immerse herself with the Witch's Coven, there was some conflict with the Witch's Coven and the island villagers, so that really helped me to get through the 10 hours. I made it back to spring after 49 hours in game and a very climactic winter finale. There is still story to be had after the season changed back to spring, but I'm quite happy where I landed. I upgraded my tool shed, garden, and greenhouse to the max that it could currently be. I got married to Wesley, a werewolf character, almost broke up with him due to some pretty bad things that he's been doing, but then forgave him and continued my marriage. Got the max number of cows, chickens, and sheep that I can buy, gathered a bunch of whirligig machines to make my life easier, and generally had an efficient farm running, so I didn't need to worry about money anymore. Although I felt really good at the end of it, I could definitely say that there were long hours where I was not enjoying the game as much as I want to. I was mining and fishing constantly to build capital, and it didn't feel like I could actually enjoy the game until around 26 hours in. At that time, I unlocked the ability to fly, and this really freed up my movement in the game. Even though the speed incantation makes running around bearable, being able to fly to any part of the island was such a great quality of life improvement. Additionally, around this time, I was introduced to whirly gigs, which are automations that I can make at Zephyr, the Pixie's workshop in the Fey town of Ravenwood Hollow. I did have to continue mining for a few extra hours after unlocking the whirly gigs because they require ingots to create. However, once I was able to get them running, I no longer had to do a lot of the extra grindy things, such as going to the mines or fishing that often. So for the last 20 or so hours that I played Wildflowers, I actually had such a good time since I could focus on the story, and that really became the main reason why I wanted to continue playing. Let's talk about some things that I liked. The voice acting in this game really sells it and makes the cast of villagers so interesting. I love getting to know everyone, and their dialogue was always varied and true to who they are as characters. I never knew how much full-on voice acting could elevate a game and give personality and life to the characters, so I do wish that more farming games would follow the same path since building relationships is so much easier with the voice acting. In the same vein, I also love the story of the game, and that extends to the cinematics that go with related story events. As I said, I was really motivated to continue playing since I wanted to know what would happen to the residents of Fairhaven, and having a consistent and interesting story is a big plus for me. I actually liked having a defined character when I thought that I wouldn't after stepping off the ferry for the first time. Tara is just super likable, albeit very oblivious and in denial about magical things in the beginning. But overall, I really liked her as a protagonist, and not once did she fall into being annoying at all. I do like that the game gives you the option to change her clothes later on when you're able to tailor clothes in your tool shed. There's so many cute variations, and it became my main focus in the winter time after I got my whirly automations running and a bunch more time to focus on fashion. I like the different romance options available to Tara in the story. Everyone has different vibes and cutscenes that come with increasing their friendships. I like how you can go on dates with your significant other after you marry them, and the date scene itself is full cinematic awesomeness. Overall, the system is pretty simple. You give food and drink items to someone to raise their heart level, and you can use magic to see what type of food and drinks they like. After that, you have to witness their cutscene to advance to the next heart level. Once you get closer to them, they'll ask you out on a date, and you'll have to craft a ring to marry them while you're dating. I like the different magical potions and incantations that could be crafted to make my life easier. The speed boost potion was definitely a favorite of mine in the beginning, so I can get back and forth across town as fast as possible. I love the summon rain spell for days that I didn't want to water my crops, and I really appreciated the summon small things spell so I didn't have to spam my spacebar button to pick up things on the ground. Another potion speeds up the growth of crops and increases how much produce you get from a fully grown crop. For a game that focuses on the magically mundane life of a witch who runs a farm, I think that it did a really good job of balancing making the tasks eventually easier and easier. Here are some things that I wish I knew sooner, plus any tips that I found through my playthrough. In the beginning, I didn't really keep many items that I foraged since I wanted to sell them for a few more gold coins. However, I found that later I needed them in a potion or incantation, so I definitely wish that I was more of a pack rat and just hoarded everything I foraged. I found the fish stick trick after seeing a setting for fish stick embargo in the settings menu. I was super curious why it needed its own setting, and delightfully found that you can make a lot of money by selling fish sticks. One fish stick sells for 100 gold, which is quite a lot for an item, so you make quite a bit of money if you buy flour from Lena's grocery store and fish from Bruno's tackle and bake shop. I was fishing for a bit before I figured that I would still make money from buying the fish instead of catching my own, so that really did cut down a lot of the grinding for money. However, sadly, it did not cut down the grinding for ores. Here are some things that I wish the game did differently. One of the first things that I noticed right away was how many times the game had me running back and forth from the cabin to my home in the beginning. This was pretty grueling to me since you don't really have access to the speed boost spell in the beginning, so the trek can be very annoying when you have to go to the cabin to turn in a quest, get another quest, walk all the way home, wait for nightfall the next day, and then make the trek back to the coven and repeat. The first one that comes to mind is when the Farseer asks you for paper on one night and then asks you for a squid the next night. I feel like he could have asked for both items instead since they were both components for the same spell. Although I do like that the speed boost spell allows Terra to walk faster, I also feel as though this is an artificial problem that the game puts on itself so that there's a reason to use the speed boost spell. I like having animals and seeing the random variations when you purchase them from Marty's ranch. However, the animation for petting the animals can be really long when you have to do it for multiple animals every day. After a few days of petting all my chickens one by one, I felt really annoyed, especially if I had sessions where I played multiple times in a row. Since the milking and wool clipping animation is extremely fast, I'm a little baffled why the petting and feeding takes so long. And lastly, in my experience, the grinding in this game is pretty high, to be honest. I'm pretty sure that I spent most of my playthrough in the mines. Although my crops did make some money, it didn't make as much as mining ores did. Luckily, this problem evaporated after I started doing the fish stick trick, but I feel like it could have been more balanced so that farming is actually worth the effort. I also needed so many ores for upgrades, potions, and whirligigs that I was just constantly mining and spent most of my time there instead of on the farm. I'm in a good spot in Wildflowers where I want to continue playing the game because of the story, and I don't have to continue grinding as much as I did to get to this point. I think the gameplay is like a bell curve where the grind gets really bad, but once you're out of it, then everything feels really good and you can focus on more important things that make the game so unique, such as the magical aspect and the story. If you're not a person who enjoys the grind, then this game might not be for you in that sense, at least unless you want to exploit selling copious amounts of fish sticks to the diner. In addition, there are certain quests that have time limits, so that can add some pressure to finish things on time for important story beats. If you don't like the grind but can work through it knowing this game has a wonderful story to tell and a colorful cast of characters to know, then I would say give it a try and see what you think. If you are not above selling a bunch of fish sticks, then I would say give it a try as well. I did enjoy my time at the end of it all, although I do understand why people might drop off after 20 hours in. Well, there you have it. If you think this game is for you, I hope you give it a try. If you've already played Wildflowers before, let me know your thoughts on the game. If you like what I do and want me to do more of it, please also consider liking and subscribing to my channel. That way I know that this is the content that you want to see more of so I can do more. Until next time, I've been Nessa and this has been a 10-1-10-1.